Today, we are going to be discussing Arthur Lipsett's short abstract film, 2187, and how it inspired George Lucas and the Star Wars galaxy. But first, Brian, you are kind of an expert on film, so could you tell us and our listeners what an abstract film is?
Yeah, for sure. So actually, I looked up the kind of definition of it, which varies a little bit depending on where you look, because I knew of abstract film just that it was, it just a movie. It didn't really have any sort of like narrative structure. It didn't have, any sort of central theme to it. So yeah, literally, it's just very abstract. So, let's see. So, according to this source I pulled, it says an abstract film or absolute film is a subgenre of experimental film and a form of abstract art. Abstract films are non narrative, contain no acting, and do not attempt to reference reality or concrete subjects. They rely on the unique qualities of motion, rhythm, light, and composition inherent in the technical medium of cinema to create an emotional experience. So, if you've ever um, seen something like referred to as some sort of like tone poem or like moving poem or something like that, this is really kind of what this is more. It's not really meant to tell a story or make you feel any sort of certain way other than just the way that it makes you feel. It's very interpretive.
Yeah, I think that's a really good definition that really fits this 2187. And it is a short film. It's available to watch on YouTube. It's 9 minutes and 33 seconds and is produced by the National Film Board of Canada, so good for them, eh? Uh,
That's right. Yeah, absolutely good for them,
yeah. And so how Lipsick kind of created this is I mean, he said this, like, we'll have to take him on his word. Like, he took discarded footage found in the editing room of the National Film Board, where he was employed as an animator. And then he kind of put in some of his own black and white 16 millimeter footage that he shot in Montreal and New York City, you know, and then kind of like put some random sounds to it. Like there is even a part where I'm like, is this person throwing up? And then I'm like, oh, they are. That's great. Like, so did I connect with every instance in this, like, overwhelmingly? Like, not all the time, but I think it's still an interesting film that kind of gets you thinking about things. And I I don't know, like I always like find it interesting and enjoyable when I watch it, like do I watch it all the time? No, but
Mhm.
I feel better for watching it. Like it's free on YouTube. And did you know like this is actually it came out 60 years ago?
Yeah, that's right. Just did that math right before we started recording here. But yeah, it came out in 1963, and um, yeah, it was very, I don't know, kind of influential in this world of abstract film. It got a lot of people, to look at abstract film in sort of a different way, and kind of the reason that we're talking about it today is because it caught the attention of George Lucas and kind of inspired him, which was, kind of the foundation for the Inspired Galaxy thing, or the Inspired a Galaxy, series that we do, right? Is to find things that identify us, to identify, people that, we, respect our work and things like that. And this was really influential to a lot of people. But yeah, obviously George Lucas, the big one here, from our Star Wars brains. But yeah, it's a really interesting look, and it comes in, it's what, like 9 minutes and 33 seconds that you go, and it's basically just a just a composite of different images, like you'd said, Cassie. It's just scraps from the cutting room floor with laid over there's some people just saying things, and then just the sounds and like a soundscape. It's very surreal, but I don't know, it's very I don't know, kind of calming in a way, but also frantic in a way. I don't know. It makes me it you
You
definitely
feel
get your
all the
own kind of
feelings.
feeling. Yeah, exactly. Like there's a part in the middle of the film where the cuts start to speed up and like that makes you feel different than the way they're going before. I don't know. It's a very interesting piece.
Yeah. It kind of gets you thinking about like, do images like make us feel a certain way because like we're kind of like subconsciously like things are edited to be that way, you know? And like,
Mhm.
do we respond to sounds like uh if they don't match to like maybe the images we're used to? So it kind of like can get you thinking about how you think. It is very meta, you know? But yeah, 2187 had a big influence on George Lucas when he was in film school. He watched it, I think, like 30 times.
Yeah, and I've got the Taschen, the Star Wars archives here for episodes 4, 5, and 6 by Paul Duncan. So I'm gonna read here what kind of the section about this. So kind of in the notes here it says Lucas saw the short film 2187 by Arthur Lipsett, which is a collage comprised of Lipsett's 60 millimeter footage, discarded footage from the National Film Board of Canada, and an audio overlay of speeches and sounds. And then George Lucas goes on to say, I saw that film 20 or 30 times. I loved it. I said, that's the kind of movie I want to make, a very off the wall, abstract kind of film. I wanted to make abstract films that are emotional. It was really where I was at. And I think that's one reason I started calling most of my USC movies by numbers. And then, yeah, so George Lucas went on then to do, a few of these kind of experimental types of films. So he did uh, he did one of a race car that was driving around in a circle. He did one that was called Freiheit, which is German for freedom. And it's just a bunch of these kind of more experimental kind of films that he was making there as a student at USC before ultimately going on to make his student film THX 1138. But yeah, all of that kind of creativity and what really drove George Lucas to be interested in making films in the first place came from this 9 minutes and 33 seconds that Arthur Lipsett put together 2187.
Yeah. And his student film, Electronic Labyrinth, THX 1138 4EB, which later became THX 1138, took place in 2187. And it, I believe, like it's shown in, it's kind of like a little bit of an Easter egg number, uh 2187, because of course it's Princess Leia's prison cell on the Death Star is 2187. And then in the sequel trilogy, Finn's stormtrooper designation is FN 2187. And it's kind of like a nod to that number as well. And then in the prequel trilogy, it's kind of a little bit hidden, but in Star Wars Revenge of the Sith, the order to initiate the Great Jedi Purge, Order 66, can be found from subtracting 21 from 87. So we did math there for you. So
That's
yeah.
that's right. We go above and beyond, but yeah, this film was very, like I said, influential to George Lucas. It really kind of cast upon him what he wanted to do with film. Right, it wasn't always this idea that he was going to have this giant space opera that was this behemoth. He wanted to tell these things almost like poems that he wanted to put out in the world. And George Lucas is always really interested in that, really interested in animation, and drew a lot of inspiration from 2187. And that's where kind of the concept of the Force comes from. It's from this line that is within in this film. So so I'm going to read the line here. So Roman Crowder is the person that reads the line within the film here, but the line is, many people feel that in the contemplation of nature and in communication with other living things, they become aware of some kind of force or something. behind this apparent mask, which we see in front of us, and they call it God. So that line there, some kind of force, that's literally where George Lucas got the force and the idea for the force.
Yeah, and I mean, not only is it really cool because of the Star Wars like Force connection, but like this literally happened 60 years ago. And uh this was recorded, this conversation between Croytor and Warren Sturgis McCullough, who was an artificial intelligence guru, like in 1963. And like we're literally seeing like, AI today. So, like back in the day, like this was all kind of like maybe like, kind of like abstract thinking and stuff. But um, I'm quoting Croytor's Wikipedia page. It says, disagreeing with McCullough's assertion that humans are nothing more than highly complex machines, Croytor argued, many people feel that in the contemplation of nature and in communication with other living things, they become aware of some kind of force or something behind this apparent mask, which we see in front of us, and they call it God. Uh, just because it's a really cool line. Like I know you said it, but like just in case like our listeners missed it, like you got it twice. So
That's right.
um I don't know, like that's kind of like the tension in Star Wars is like the tension between like kind of machines, like the machines which can be like, like machine type of thinking, just kind of like doing things because you're told to, the technology, and then like kind of like finding your own organic path, and like connecting with what's real.
Hmm.
So there's always that tension in Star Wars. So it's like it's kind of interesting like how much maybe 2187 really did impact George Lucas, just like from this one little line, like because we're able to like it's the force is literally named and we have that mechanical and organic tension. Like what do you think? Is there anything else that you can kind of see that influenced Star Wars in there?
Yeah, and I mean, from kind of this one, simple line of this film that he watched over and over again, you get that idea, the implementation of the Force, which actually was called in the first few iterations of the drafts of Star Wars was the Force of Others before ultimately being, you know, shortened to just the Force. But I really like the idea of this line. I'm, we've gone through it a couple of times there, but it really is, kind of like just like the film itself, the abstract film. This line is very open to interpretation. Is the Force? Is it is something physical? Is it something that's good? Is it something that's bad? Is it, something that is within all of us? Is it around all of us? Is, for good or evil? But it's just something that, people can identify within themselves, within their surroundings, within within their world. And I think that idea really kind of hammered into George Lucas that it was less of a deity, even though the line goes on to people call this force God. It was less of a deity sort of thing, as just kind of an always present uh, force, an always present thing that was just surrounding everything. And I think that he really kind of liked that idea, and obviously he's using it to give his characters some kind of agency, some sort of spirituality, propelling things through this space opera that he's writing.
Yeah, it's kind of like a spirituality or even just like a way of being that I think like everyone in the world can get behind no matter where they're from or like what belief system or non-belief system they adhere to. Um and it's kind of funny because when you like it is a simple sentence he's saying, but it kind of like he's describing concepts that are kind of ineffable or like indescribable. And it's like because machines are kind of ones and zeros, and like, like humans have neurons and stuff, and sometimes it's like, did I choose to move my arm, or like did my arm move itself and I thought it later, like what's happening, but then there's like parts of life that, you know, uh and nature and like being around other people that uh make you feel more whole, and it feels magical, like, and maybe it is undefinable, like, and maybe we can't find the answer, like, are we fully machine, are we fully, like organic, maybe there's a balance, but it gets you thinking, and um and we have to kind of make sense of that tension, and AI literally exists nowadays, like how is that going to impact us? Like, are we still going to be human, like when we're surrounded by machines that kind of think like us, like maybe that's a little dark, but it's just like it's it's interesting to me that this film, it's a short 9 minute 33 second, abstract film coming out of Canada, and it inspired one of like the most successful movie series of all time. And it kind of like touches on artificial intelligence and all that, like 60 years before now. Like, so I just think that's cool.
Yeah, it is very cool, and kind of where this line gets its power, because George Lucas goes on to say, in a few interviews, that kind of that statement really resonated with him because it felt very present to right now, but it was similar to, things that people had been saying, since the dawn of mankind, right? Since we have been able to begin, communicating this way, people have had these similar ideas and feelings. And I think that within the confines of the film 2187, why this line is so particularly powerful and moving as you're watching the movie is because that line's being played over, just an abstract set of images and moving pictures, right? There's no like rhyme or reason to it, which is kind of partly unnerving but also partly beautiful, that it's this thing that's encompassing everything. It doesn't have to make sense, and it doesn't have to line up, but you feel kind of that string that's weaving its way through this thing, um even through the chaos of this abstract film.
Yeah. And I'm glad that George Lucas saw it, and I'm glad that I saw it, even without the connections to um, George Lucas and Star Wars. I think it's still worth seeing and thinking about. And um, yeah, like we said, you can find it on YouTube for free. Like I'm sure you can find it elsewhere, is there anything else you think people should know about 2187 that we didn't cover?
No, I think that yeah, if you have any sort of interest in this, or kind of where the mythos of Star Wars got started, I mean, certainly you can read through any of the Star Wars timeline books, and it's going to give you a bunch of inspiration that George took, from Buck Rogers, serial adventures to Kurosawa films, and the friends that he was making at USC. But something as simple as this, I think, really kind of gets into the mindset of George Lucas, especially if you're one to kind of go back and look at his student films and things like that. I think it's a very worthwhile 9 minutes and 33 seconds, which, is not always the case with abstract film, because certainly abstract
Sometimes it's
films
four
are not
hours long.
sometimes, yeah, they are not created equally for sure. But yeah, this one's good, and it gets you feeling, and even if you're, thrown off by it if abstract film is something that you're not used to. You should watch it. It's similar to going to a museum and just going up in front of a painting, and they speak to you differently, and that's kind of the purpose of this. So yeah, give it a watch, give it a try, and let us know what you think.
Yeah. And maybe it's more poignant to say more than ever, after our discussion, but may the force be with you.